Well, I was waiting for another idiot to start talking shit about the Star Wars prequels with little to no clue what they're talking about and regurgitating the same talking points with no critical thinking at all. These movies are boring, political, awkward, boring, blah blah blah. I've heard it all before, and the people who are like this are utter dumbasses who are confused by basic concepts and make contradictory criticisms. So Memeulous decides he wants to make a prequel hate video, thinking it's the cool, hip thing to do. It never was. I hate people like this, who still think the prequels were hated by majority of fans. Of course, the same people who think this way are very casual Star Wars fans at best. And they didn't pay attention to the movies and didn't do any research. Today, we'll be looking at Memeulous' ignorant, pretentious video and demonstrate how out of touch with reality he is.
Obi-Wan Kenobi is a Disney Plus series that may or may not be out yet, depending on when I can get this video out, and everyone may or may not like it. I don't know, I'm making this video before it's out. Before its release, I wanted to do a video on what many people say is the worst Star Wars film ever made.
The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker are the 2 points of discussion. I wonder which one of them you will pick.
Now, canonically, Star Wars, in my opinion, has more misses than hits.
Yeah, a 6-way streak of quality, and then maybe an okay film, and nothing else.
I mean, it really does seem like today Star Wars can't drop a thing without it dividing the world.
Shame you have no clue the context behind the division.
But let's just get the facts straight here. Attack of the Clones is abysmal.
Amazing.
Solo is a hollow, empty thing. Rise of Skywalker is like Star Wars if it was made by a child with crayons, and we just don't discuss the holiday special, which I found out that's canon. The holiday special's canon.
The page you showed on screen clarifies that it's secondary canon, which is pretty low on the canon hierarchy, proving you didn't do a single ounce of research into tiers of canon. Ladies and gents, proof that this twit has little to no experience with the Star Wars franchise, and didn't bother to improve his knowledge.
It's not like there's a homogeneity to the way each of these Star Wars movies fail. They're all special in their unique failings, and it's fun to note the special way films fail. The film I'm talking about today is the start of that Star Wars decline.
If you weren't out of touch with Star Wars and its fanbase, I'd assume you're talking about The Force Awakens. But of course you aren't.
Now let's go back in time, all the way to 1999. Family Guy just aired its first series, the Euro was introduced, and George Memeulous was celebrating his first birthday. But most importantly to this video, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace came out in cinemas. Now, put yourself in the shoes of your average Star Wars fan that grew up with the originals.
Original trilogy fanatics, let's make a correction there.
You watch the journey Luke and his pals went on, how their bond of friendship saved the galaxy, how the evil Darth Vader would do anything to foil their plans. In the originals, you hear little snippets like Clone Wars and Republic, and your head conjures up all these fantastic stories of the past.
Worth the hype, wasn't it?
And then as you get a little bit older, you hear about the plans of new films covering the rise of Darth Vader, the conflict of the Clone Wars. You've been waiting years for this. The date of Episode 1 is getting closer. You booked your ticket weeks in advance for the midnight screening. You've got your Yoda costume on, you got your Jar Jar Binks tongue lollipop, and you got one of them blow up lightsabers. You're ready and raring. The cinema employee opens the door with fear towards the congregating masses, and you shove him down to the floor and rush to the screen in excitement. You get in your seat, shaking and crying from the adrenaline coursing through your veins. The screen comes on. You hear that iconic duh, and then you see the title crawl, and you're greeted with this. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute.
Oh, fuck off with that. Nobody in the theater was bored by the title crawl. Enough with that crap.
You hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships. The greedy Trade Federation has stopped all
I love how he's so bored by blockade of deadly battleships.
Shipping to the small planet of the... But this is so boring.
Only to those with a short attention span. If it isn't words like Death Star and Galactic Empire, it's automatically boring, is it? Shows you just went into this video without thinking it out.
It's so boring, in fact, that I've switched off. I'm just reading the words. I'm not taking them in.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? You're not taking it in. The prequels are not for the weak-minded. You're supposed to think when you watch them. And people criticize the movie for forcing you to think about what's going on and why. As if that's so hard.
I don't know what this means because it's so fucking boring to read. While the Congress of the Republic endlessly debates this alarming chain of events, the Supreme Chancellor has secretly dispatched 2 Jedi Knights, the Guardians of Peace and Justice in the Galaxy, to settle the conflicts. Okay, the end bit, that bit sounds a bit more interesting. I don't know why they open with all that, the tax shit. Boring. This is a movie for children. George Lucas, why are you filling their heads with trade routes and taxation?
Sounds like George Lucas respects the intelligence of a child more than you do.
It's like, I'm 23 years of age and I can barely make sense of this.
How are you not embarrassed to admit that?
No, at least from this text, we know that the Jedi are going to be in it. Not just 1 Jedi, but 2 Jedi. This is really, really, really exciting because we've never, ever, ever, ever seen 2 Jedis with each other before the Empire took over. I mean, unless you count like Luke and Obi-Wan and Luke and Yoda, but I mean like 2 with lightsabers, 2 holding lightsabers. This is our first glimpse of what they were like in the good old days, the glory days. This is them at their physical peak.
Let me guess, you're gonna complain about that too.
I'll get a load of this. I was lounging in my living room catching up on the film opens with these Jedi entering a big ring spaceship. They talk very calmly and slowly about negotiating with the Trade Federation, which is very thrilling.
So you wanted them to be quippy about settling a blockade? Sounds way too inappropriate for anyone, not just a Jedi to do.
Meanwhile, we see the first of a surprising amount of questionable alien races of the Star Wars prequels.
Ah yes, the classic racial stereotypes, who are incredibly offensive despite the fact that they're fucking aliens with a different dialect. People literally saw stereotypes in them, where they're just fictional aliens. George Lucas has disputed the racial stereotype claim with what I just discussed.
These fuckers.
On top of not being able to comprehend simple concepts, you can't pronounce the Nemoidians. Are you just acting like a fucking idiot just because?
These aliens are quite hard to watch because of the very obvious stereotypical East Asian accents assigned to them for some reason.
Again, they're aliens from outer space with a different original dialect.
I'm not going in there with 2 Jedi.
They talk to the title Phantom Menace of the movie, Lord Sidious, who tells them to kill the Jedi. They get gassed by the these people. Escape and go on a killing spree, ending so many robot lives, cutting through droids like they're nothing. It's slightly epic. This whole bamboozling vibe. I feel off the gate you'd be kind of excited about what's happening in front of you, even though you barely have an understanding of the concept.
The Trade Federation is blockading Naboo because they're greedy. Not very hard to understand.
Like, I only really do because I've been reading up on this hard. So for this video, I've probably seen the movie maybe like 5 times, and I had no idea the context behind it. I kind of just watched it because cool lightsaber battle love.
Yep, sounds about right. The dumbasses who trashed the prequels are, at the end of the day, only interested in lightsaber battles and spaceships.
But you know, it's straight into the action. We're seeing lightsabers, so I'm happy. We see a highly rare use of force speed used once and only once in the entirety of Star Wars canon.
Blatantly wrong. It's strange how you say Star Wars canon, because in both canon and Legends, force speed is seen quite a bit. But again, this is an idiot who knows nothing about Star Wars and didn't bother to check. Like, you're sourcing Wikipedia articles, but haven't bothered to look up force speed in this instance?
But you don't know that yet, so all you're seeing is all the action-filled potential in front of you. The Jedi discover the Separatists are planning on invading Naboo, a quite peaceful planet, kind of like Japan. It gives me a Japan vibe. The Jedi make a quick retreat with their plans on warning the defenseless Naboo people. But they land on the wrong side of the planet! You fucking idiot! How'd you land on the wrong side of the fucking planet?
Oh, so you think the Allies should have landed in Germany and not in France for D-Day? Or scrap that. Start your invasion by landing in Berlin specifically, and don't factor in enemy resistance that you'd have to get through first. Also, pay attention. They're conquering the entire planet, not just Naboo's capital.
Thankfully, the GOAT, GOAT of Star Wars, literally undisputed greatest of all time, Jar Jar Binks is there to help. They follow him to the underwater Gungan city to find a way to Naboo to warn its people. At the Gungan city, they're given a tri-bubble bongo, which is like a stingray submarine spaceship thing by another questionably racist alien.
He's an alien.
And make their way to Naboo, with Jar Jar helping to navigate, but all he does is shit himself in the Stingray submarine bongo thing.
I love how he doesn't even explain what the issue with this part is.
When they get bit by a big fish. By the time they get to Naboo, it's been fully invaded. Thousands of droids outside the capital. The Queen captured, not dead though. They don't want to kill her. They want to get her to sign a treaty to make the invasion legal. You can't break into someone's house and then force them at gunpoint to give you the house. That's so rude.
So rude is the bulk of a prequel hater's argument. They either take the movie too literally or not literally enough.
Anyway, the Jedi were too late to warn the Naboo. Fuck! Time to go for plan B, which is to sneak into the occupied city through the thousands of droids without being spotted.
Pretty sure the Jedi can handle themselves even if they were spotted.
It's all the while with Jar Jar Binks in company, possibly the least subtle creature ever. Like, they didn't leave him in the tri-bubble bongo. No. He's coming as well. Awful decision making.
Yeah, leave Jar Jar unsupervised where he'll probably be discovered and killed. You put no thought into this video, you know that, right?
But amazingly, they're able to sneak right through. And I don't know if they were planning on rescuing the Queen or if they just sort of bumped into her, but yeah, brilliant.
You need to be spoon-fed, is that it?
They've got the Queen and some other refugees in a spaceship, but it doesn't end there. There's still a blockade in front of them. But by luck, they're also able to get past that incredibly easily as well.
You literally just showed most of the droids being shot off, almost dooming the ship. I'm not really sure about them doing it easily.
Everyone's unscathed and wanted to give R2-D2 a pat on the back for basically doing the job that he was designed to do.
So what?
The ship is a little bashed up from the encounter with the blockades. This isn't really, like, I don't know, visually communicated to us, as it looks really, really chill and, like, operational in there.
The ship isn't that damaged, you idiot. They need to fix the hyperdrive.
And it lands like a dream. But communicated verbally in this 20-second scene with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, where Obi-Wan says that the hyperdrive generator is gone.
The hyperdrive generator's gone.
And that they're gonna need a new one, or else they won't be able to go to Coruscant in time. Now, you may be asking, what the fuck is Coruscant? Isn't that a French pastry?
The Republic's capital, you dimwit.
It's like the planet where politics happens. And they can't just phone them up and tell them because they're worried that the message will be intercepted by the Trade Federation.
And that's a problem because...
And so they need this part and they're in Tatooine to get it. Now, are you ready for the most boring fucking hour of your life where Qui-Gon just mills about on Tatooine, makes friends with a child and gambles? Because that's what the next bit in the Phantom Menace is all about.
They're stranded. How is that boring?
In context, if you're paying attention at this point and actually know what's going on, which I'd say is probably like 10% of the people watching it.
10% of people are way more smart than you are in that case.
There should be a lot of tension and concern. Naboo, a planet that's whole gimmick is 100% peaceful, is in the midst of being invaded. They're like the planetary equivalent of a cute little puppy desperate for a cuddle. And the Trade Federation is basically pissing on that puppy. You don't want that puppy to be pissed on, do you? Because it doesn't deserve that. The Trade Federation is looking like a big bully, I would say.
What the fuck even was that tangent?
Qui-Gon Jinn decides to go into town to try and find a way to fix the broken piece of the ship so they can get to Coruscant. The elite team Qui-Gon decides to bring with him on his journey is R2-D2. Okay, classic choice. A 14-year-old girl. All right, Qui-Gon, a bit strange.
Don't restart, I'll knock you out clean.
And Jar Jar Binks, okay. I mean, I'm not sure why he seems to love Jar Jar so much. He brings him everywhere with him, and we're never given a reason.
To supervise him. Watch the movie.
He takes him when they infiltrate Naboo to save the Queen. He comes along to Coruscant, and for some reason, he seems to be the only capable ally Qui-Gon decides to bring with him to Tatooine. He doesn't want Obi-Wan, he just kind of leaves him in the ship.
Yeah, someone needs to guard the ship. It's the only way out.
He doesn't want the Queen's guard. Qui-Gon wants his Jar Jar. Maybe Qui-Gon Jinn, the Master Jedi, is being manipulated himself by a dark and an evil energy. An energy so sinister that it got gutted from the trilogy. But the gaping wounds of that gutting can still make a shape. A shape that can only be understood through deep intellectual analysis of the intricate subtext of the prequel trilogy and its production, because as George Lucas himself actually said, Jar Jar is the key to all of this.
Jar Jar is the key to all this.
And where's the context for this?
You see, my friends, the prequels were devised with the intention of having a poetic relationship with the original trilogy.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
And for the most part, that is the case.
I wonder where this is going or how this makes the movie movie bad.
Anakin is a subversion of Luke. As Luke grows into the hero of the light, we see Anakin become the warrior of the dark. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan both sacrifice themselves for protecting the one thing they believe will bring balance to the Force. We see the fall of the Republic giving way to the Empire, and we watch the destruction of the Empire give way to the Rebellion. You see, it's like poetry.
So if they rhyme.
But there's one stanza here that just feels a little bit out of place, and that's Jar Jar. And it's not that it doesn't rhyme completely. In the original trilogy, there was also a goofy alien, which the protagonist found to be dumb, annoying, and cringe. But where the poetry diverges is that little alien doesn't just keep being annoying and cringe until he was pushed to the side.
You haven't even explained why he's annoying.
He was revealed as being the greatest Jedi Master of all time, Yoda. Now, if George Lucas was maintaining this goal of rhyme, then it doesn't feel like much of a stretch for Jar Jar to be revealed as the greatest Sith Master of all time.
The Darth Jar Jar theory is irrelevant to this discussion because it wasn't in the movie.
And it's not just this hard fact that supports this idea. There are many indications that Jar Jar has a much deeper power, of which we never get an explanation. Look at when he jumps into the water to get to Naboo. That's not a normal Gungan leap. If it was, why don't we see Gungans jumping like that all over the battlefield in the final fight?
Really grasping at straws, aren't you? Gungans don't jump during a battle, so he's a Sith Lord. What?
They're a water-dwelling race. There's absolutely no physiological requirement for a Gungan to be able to jump like that. The only time we've seen anyone in the Star Wars universe jump that way is from Force users. Okay, still not convinced? Okay, alright, sure. But it does go deeper. There are a handful of small moments where it seems Jar Jar is performing Sith mind tricks on poor, unassuming individuals.
Alright, I'm gonna skip this Darth Jar Jar bullshit, because it's a dumb theory that has no relevance to the movie.
So, the evil Sith Lord, the Jedi, the droid, and Padmé walk through Tatooine and enter a small store owned by another legendary racist alien from the genius mind of George Lucas.
He's an alien, you dolt.
Watto. And he seems to be the only trader who has the piece they need for the ship. I assume because Qui-Gon is forced to gamble for this piece. If anyone else had the hyperdrive generator Qui-Gon needed, he wouldn't have been forced to gamble the £1 trillion spaceship he just stole from Naboo, which he doesn't even legally own.
Yeah, the movie even points out it's a risky move. You weren't even paying any attention.
Whilst at the shop, we also meet Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader. But instead of being a big robot man, he's a little child, and he's a human slave for Watto. Anakin basically lays out a bit of preliminary groundwork on Padmé, you know, dropping game.
Got an apartment 5 minutes away, innit?
As well as Padmé's attention, little Anakin also plays with the attention of Qui-Gon Jinn, who notices that Anakin isn't like the other kids. So Qui-Gon immediately decides he needs to adopt him into his Jedi cult. But this also gives Qui-Gon an additional justifiable reason within the Jedi code to gamble on Anakin winning the pod race.
So what's the problem? You don't explain anything about why it's bad.
Which is sort of like Tatooine wacky racers. Qui-Gon is dead set that Anakin can win this race, and he bets Watto with the ultimate stakes: people's lives. Qui-Gon decides to add further to the bet, betting that fat fuck Watto that if Anakin doesn't win the race, he not only gets the hyperdrive generator, but also gets ownership of Watto's 11-year-old slave. Qui-Gon half-heartedly tries to give Anakin's mum freedom as well, but Watto just completely dismisses the idea, saying that no pod is worth 2 slaves. But then Watto won't even let Qui-Gon choose what slave he gets and rolls a dice. This produces a moment where Qui-Gon actually uses the Force to ensure that Anakin's mother stays in slavery for the rest of her life.
Like he has a fucking choice.
They do the pod race and it's pretty epic, I'm not gonna lie. It's like a cool sequence, but it goes on for fucking ever. And it has no real bearing on the actual story, but
aside from the bet Qui-Gon and Watto made, in case you weren't paying attention.
It does look cool. It's sort of exciting. Anakin wins, as we expect, despite some interference from that Sebulba fella that Jar Jar did the thing on. And Sebulba was so determined to win this race, he was willing to try and murder a child, but he fails.
What the hell is an antagonist to you?
And Qui-Gon's big bet comes through. Qui-Gon makes a check-in call to Obi-Wan to let him know that, despite their being apart, the pulse of Obi-Wan's heart still radiates his soul, and that they're going to grow their little family by one more. He's got this amazing Force user to join the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan says Qui-Gon is being insane because, frankly, he is. A weird thing you might notice when watching this cinematic masterpiece is Obi-Wan doesn't do anything in this whole film. He sits around a bunch and argues with Qui-Gon about Anakin, but mostly he's just there for muscle.
Dead wrong.
Ewan McGregor is one of the best actors involved in the prequel movies, and his performance of Obi-Wan is so entertaining to watch. The guy's so perfect for the role that when filming the Disney Plus series, he nearly adopted a camel. I'm not sure where he would have kept this camel, but regardless, it's pure Ben Kenobi vibes. He's also the closest link we have to the original trilogy, and not as if this is a bad thing, but the prequels don't look like the original trilogy very much.
But it looks like Star Wars regardless.
Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan just comes in and scratched that nostalgia itch so nicely. But sadly, it feels like despite being one of the strongest characters in all the prequels, George Lucas couldn't find anything for Obi-Wan to do. But unlike in the original trilogy, he couldn't just kill him off. They get all their team together, and then Darth Sidious's apprentice tries to run over a child. Oh man, he's just like me. Qui-Gon and Darth Maul have a bit of a rumble. Qui-Gon makes his escape, and they fly to Coruscant. And that's all the Tatooine stuff, thank fuck. This took up almost a whole hour of the film. A whole hour. It was so boring.
It's boring is pretty much this guy's entire video.
And the whole time you're thinking about all the horrible things happening to the sweet, innocent Nabooians. That's what a citizen of Naboo is called, in case you were wondering, a Nabooian. And you're worried for them and going, oh no, I sure hope they can get this essential ship piece so they can get to Coruscant and save the Nabooians as soon as possible. Who knows what terrible war crimes are being committed to the Nabooians? So they get to Coruscant and basically the Republic Council agrees to do nothing. What the fuck? This council is shit!
Wow, you know nothing about politics, do you?
The main politician guy, who's basically the president of Star Wars at this moment, Supreme Chancellor Valorum, is so bad that the only thing he can get his Galactic Republic to decide on is that he's shit. So bad that they do a vote of no confidence, but that's going to take a week. A week that the Nabooians can't afford. And with such a terrible Galactic Republic, it's no wonder the Separatists want an alternative to it. But
isn't that the point?
what's even worse is that the Jedi Council, which consists of the best and most accomplished Jedi in the universe, are reduced to sitting in these differently sized special chairs in a ring like they're in an AA meeting. They refuse Qui-Gon's request to train Anakin and basically say that the Sith don't exist.
The Sith no longer exist, actually. God, why do prequel haters make me so angry?
When they do, we've seen them. Next, we get a crazy twist. The Queen's 14-year-old handmaiden Padmé is actually the real Queen of Naboo, and she won't wait a week. She's going back to Naboo right now to fight for her people, and the boys are coming along. And of course, Jar Jar does some Sith mind tricks to get brought along too. But before they leave, Anakin gives Padmé a little hand-carved necklace so she can remember him. This is pretty unrealistic though. My 11-year-old cousin once gave me a handmade gift so I would remember him, and it was a snail shell with an Among Us character drawn on it. Pretty weird, but I can't remember his name.
This is extremely shallow at this point. This guy has no clue what he's talking about.
Anyway, they get to Naboo pretty easily and without issue. What happened to the fucking blockade?
Yeah, pretty much the only valid criticism you made in this entire video. Bravo.
Padmé organises a meeting with the Gungans and is somehow able to convince them to fight for Naboo by talking good.
No shit, Naboo is their home too, isn't it?
What ensues is the finale of the film, a four-way action sequence where Anakin fights in space, Padmé storms the castle, and the Gungans fight the droid army, and the Jedi fight Darth Maul in the most epicest lightsaber battle ever. Darth Maul's lightsaber is like double-sided, so it's doubly as awesome. And there's really cool music like da 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 da. They're doing the lightsaber battles like jung 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 jung. Anyway, you know the deal. The heroes pretty much win in every way. Qui-Gon Jinn dies. Even though if Obi-Wan just used force speed when he was running down the hall, they'd probably both still be fine.
As I recall, Obi-Wan was too puffed to do that after jumping all the way up.
He convinces the Jedi Council to take in Anakin, and they have like a Viking-style burial for Qui-Gon. And we end with the big question, the title of the film. Who is the Phantom Menace? It's Jar Jar. So is the Phantom Menace the worst Star Wars movie? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's definitely one of the bad ones.
By your shit standards, it definitely isn't.
I think because of the weird, confusing, and like overstuffed story, where it takes someone with like a fucking PhD to follow everything that's going on. Some things manage to come through that are interesting. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. It definitely doesn't come close to the peak of Star Wars. But I've always been split between this and Attack of the Clones as the worst Star Wars movie. But since some of the Disney stuff has come out, it's hard to commit to one being the worst. Maybe I'll find out later if I look at the other ones, so let me know if you want to see that.
And hopefully, you'll do more research next time. That's another moronic, idiotic, out-of-touch twit who still thinks the prequels are bad movies using weak, nonsensical points that are derived from RedLetterMedia and little more. What an utter dumbass. So that's that. I'm JJ Plagiarisms. And until next time, what are stories but mystery boxes?
We found you hiding, we found you lying, choking on the dirt and sand. Your former glories and all your stories, dragged and washed with